On a bench outside the medical center sat a pregnant woman, already quite overweight, crying bitterly. People were passing by, looking at her, some bewildered, some sympathetically. But for the most part, no one cared. People came to the center with their own concerns, troubles, and joys. What should they think of some pregnant woman who suddenly needed to cry? Suddenly she stopped crying. She clutched at her big belly, her eyes rounded in fright. Just then, a middle-aged man walked by. He didn't walk by, but walked up to the woman and asked, "What's wrong with you? Are you sick?" "I think I'm in labor." "Oh, I think it's starting." The woman began to sigh. "So what are you sitting here for?" "This is the hospital." "Let's go quickly." The man hurried. "Oh, they won't accept me. I lost my documents. I don't have any money. I don't have anything." The girl kept sighing. "So, as long as I live, I've never heard of anyone giving birth on a bench in a hospital yard. Are you crazy? At least have pity on the baby." The man took the pregnant woman under his arm and dragged her toward the emergency room. "Oh, mommy," she moaned. "You're about to become a mommy yourself. Let's go quickly." The man hurried. "Come on. They'll take you in. Don't doubt it. What's your name?" "Eliza." "And I'm Richard. Here we are. Come on in. Hey, somebody." He called out, "Over here. Hurry up. The girl is in labor." The doctor on duty came out, and another of the staff came out. "Who's in labor? Have a seat. Where's your exchange card?" "No, I've lost everything." "There's nothing." "Oh, that hurts. Man, is this your wife? Daughter? What else has she lost? We need to know how far along she is, the tests, and so on." The doctor on duty said to the man, "I don't know. I'm just a random passerby. She was sitting here in your yard. They must have kicked her out by now. It's an outrage. You're medics. What if she dies here now?" The man cursed. "She'll be all right. She won't die. There have been many of them, giving birth in between," grumbled Doctor. "Julia, get her ready to give birth. Take her to the delivery room. It looks like she will give birth soon." He ordered the nurse and then added, "Although no, first to the infectious diseases ward. We do not know where she was walking around until the last day. I don't want her infecting everyone here. You stop that, doctor. You can see that she's a decent girl. You never know what happens in life." Richard said angrily, "I'll pay what I have to, and I'll keep an eye on her. Don't leave her without help. Just tell me what it's going to cost, so it won't be a problem." Eliza, writhing in pain, was already being carried to the delivery room. Calm down, darling. Listen to me now, or you'll give birth badly," said the elderly midwife, examining the girl. The usual worries that precede the birth of a human being began for this woman. For Eliza, it was the first time, and it was unexpected. Yes, she had not properly prepared for the birth of her child, but not because she was irresponsible. She just hoped for help and persuaded her son to wait another day or two. He did wait, but only until his due date. And so the due date came. It was as if the unborn child was already aware that his mother had already gone through a lot, and there was just as much trouble ahead. He didn't torture her. He was born rather quickly. "Mark," the exhausted mother whispered with an enlightened smile as the baby was placed on her chest. After the delivery, Eliza and her son were taken to a private room, which was clearly a paid ward. "Wait, that's a mistake. I don't have money for such a room. Take me to a regular one," the young mother wondered. "This room is yours. There are no others," the nurse replied with a smile. Yes, there was a charge for the room, but everything was paid for by the very man who brought the girl to the medical center. And not just the room. However, the nurse had no time to get into that. She had other things to do. She pointed to a large bag of baby dowries. "And here are more presents for you. There's everything you need for the baby." From whom? The girl didn't understand. "And from the authorities of the city?" The nurse quickly replied, as she was told to do. "They give it to all the mothers." The nurse came out. Eliza, forgetting the gifts, began to consider her miracle. "My dear son, we are the two of us in the whole world. That means we are not afraid of anything," she thought, though in fact there was a lot to be afraid of. She didn't want to think about what she was going to face in the near future. Now she was in a comfortable room, her baby was beside her, and the medical staff would come running at the first call. But this fairy tale that happened in life cannot last. Soon they will be discharged, and where will she go? And most importantly, where to take the baby? Eliza cautiously got up and walked over to the gift bags. She peeked. Indeed, there was everything an infant needed and more. Diapers, costumes, pacifiers, and toys. To think that she and her son had been taken care of by those through whose fault she found herself in this position would have been ridiculous. Eliza had much more serious things to think about. From this day, destined to be remembered as her happiest, she would have to think not only of herself, but also of this yet helpless man. Eliza looked at Mark asleep again. Only a year ago, she had been the happiest, and she had every reason to hope that it would always be so. She had a man she loved, an apartment of her own, a job, a faithful friend. A future that promised only happy changes. After all, Eliza's life was not very happy at first. Her father drank a lot. Weak mother could not do anything about it. There was never any money. She was ashamed in front of people for her unsettled life, for her parents. After finishing school, the girl could not continue her education. She could not even think about it. She had no special abilities, and she had no money. She had to start working, earn money to live somehow. And where would you go without an education? No experience? Mother, who had worked as a cleaner all her life, encouraged her daughter to take the same job. So what? It's as good a job as any. There I saw an ad in a store, there is a need for cleaners, or in the clinic. Yeah, it's not much money, but you'll have some free time. And it's not hard. You can get a job as a salesman or a cashier somewhere. So what? They'll pin the debts on you. They'll take you to court. God forbid. But Eliza didn't want to work as a cleaner. Then, thanks to a neighbor, she called me to a small company where she worked as a seamstress. I don't know how to sew. The girl was frightened. You'll learn at the same time. We're not sewing tuxedos there. Can't you stitch a sheet? And then you can start something more complicated. Without official employment, but the pay isn't bad. Her neighbor persuaded her, so Eliza became a seamstress. And indeed, she became good at it. But she didn't have time to save money. Her father died. And it wasn't just because the funeral cost a pretty penny. It turned out that they had so many debts that they were about to be evicted from their apartment. Again, kind people advised them. They exchanged their 2-room apartment for a small 1-room apartment in the same house. They paid their debts. They started to live together with Mother. And they would have lived till now. But Mother died too. Eliza was scared to be all alone in this world, where even her parents were not very easy. But she always hoped for the best. She looked forward with optimism and knew that one day she would be happy. That's when Christopher came into her life. He became more than just an escape from loneliness. Eliza fell in love with this cheerful young man at first sight. At first, she didn't even hope that anything would work out between them. She did not even believe in the possibility of acquaintance with this handsome man. Not only was he a handsome guy, but he was also a student. He was a university student. What did he need her for? An undergraduate working as a seamstress. Besides, he had an apartment. True, not in the city, but in the suburbs. But he lived in a dorm not far from Eliza's house. And suddenly a miracle happened. This young man, whom she had only secretly looked at from afar, paid attention to her. Her friend persuaded her to go to a disco at the dormitory. That's where they met. They started dating and soon lived in Eliza's apartment. The girlfriend who invited Eliza to the disco was even offended by her. That's it, Eliza, I'm not going out with you anymore. You got yourself a better boyfriend. That's the Christopher I wanted, her friend said in a joking sort of way. Christopher, indeed, is an enviable fellow. Eliza then only brushed it off. and I'm not going anywhere else myself. I have Christopher now." She was sure that she and Christopher would be together forever. Time has shown that it was in vain. In the beginning, she trusted her lover unconditionally, especially since they were really happy together at the time, and the only thing that was frustrating at times was the lack of money. Christopher rented out his apartment, but very cheaply. It was far away and not in a good location. Of course, Eliza worked, but her salary was small, and she had to deny herself many things, even the essentials. But she was happy. Christopher, on the other hand, was annoyed by these shortcomings. That made Eliza love him even more. It wasn't the lack of money that frustrated him. Christopher was upset that he could not buy his beloved a warm coat, new shoes, beautiful earrings. It was so touching and unsettling at the same time. "Oh, Eliza, it's not a good time for us to get together," said Christopher at times. "You need a real man, not one like me. You'll only waste your best years on me." "What are you talking about, Christopher? I love you. I've never been as happy as I am with you." "What's money got to do with it? You'll get a degree, get a job, and then we'll have everything. There's nothing yet. I can't take you anywhere. I can't buy you anything. The tenants have moved out again. I'll have to find someone else. And can't sell that apartment. They won't give you enough money for it. Moreover, the debt there is more than it is worth. Let's sell this one then, mine," Eliza said one day during such a conversation. "I never liked it, to be honest. It's so cramped and dark, but they'll give you something for it. That will be the money. And then we'll buy one for ourselves. Don't doubt it." "Where are we going to live now?" wondered Christopher, not rejecting Eliza's offer, however. "We can rent an inexpensive room for the time being. The main thing is that we'll be together. I don't care about the rest. I can't stand to see you worrying about this stupid money." That's what we decided. We didn't have to look for buyers for a long time. Maria's parents bought the apartment. The same friend who had long wanted to start her own life separately from her parents. So they were afraid that their daughter would start wandering around renting, or even go to the unknown. And then they heard about Eliza's decision. It was perfect for them. A separate small apartment not far from theirs, and also bought from an acquaintance who by inexperience would not bargain much. You'd have to think of that, to sell the apartment. Maria's mother sniggered. "What silly girl is she hoping for?" "I have no idea. And there's not much to overcharge her. The repairs are old. She will probably leave her things, which we will have to take out later. So it's all very much to our advantage." The apartment was sold. Eliza was left without registration. She and Christopher rented a room. In addition, they became the owners of what seemed at first to be a considerable amount of money. But after paying the debts for Christopher's apartment, some other purchases, and a vacation together, not at the sea, of course, in a suburban sanatorium, there was almost nothing left. It was complicated by the fact that the small business where Eliza worked had closed down. Again, we had to save money on everything, which was not conducive to a stronger relationship. Yes, Eliza suddenly felt that her relationship with Christopher was in decline. In fact, the young man wasn't exactly hiding it. He snapped every now and then, reproaching the girl for selling her apartment, for not knowing how to handle money. "That's what you've accomplished. That's crazy. Selling real estate in order to spend the money for nothing. What are you going to sell now? A kidney?" The guy rebuked the girl. "But you didn't mind," Eliza timidly objected. "I consulted with you. Besides, we spent the money together. And not just on food." "Well, thank you, dear. I didn't expect such statements. Was it me who advised you? Was it me you spent money on? Is it my fault we're living in this hovel now?" The guy continued to swear. "I didn't say that. That's what I heard. I'm sorry." More and more often, Christopher left home without finishing an argument or came back too late. Or not at all. Eliza didn't know where her lover was. And when she asked him, he didn't give a good answer. And it was at that time that Eliza felt the beating of new life under her heart. She was overjoyed. First of all, she had longed for a child herself. Second, the news that they were about to have a baby should have changed Christopher's attitude toward her. And it did, but not in the way she'd expected. What? A baby? Is this some kind of joke? Why the jokes? Didn't you and I dream of having children? We've been dreaming. Now it's time to have a baby. I'm in my last year of college. You have no job, not even a registration. We both have no money and no idea how to get it. Of course, you can't do without a child. Begging would be easier with him, Christopher said ironically. But you promised to marry me and put me in your apartment. Ah, so you decided then to speed up the process by means of a child? You should have warned me, my dear. I don't want any children, so maybe you don't need me either, asked Eliza, already knowing what the answer would be. Very possibly. Our relationship seems to have exhausted itself long ago. Christopher, what are you saying, and especially at a time like this? Said Eliza in shock. At what moment? I'm even glad I could tell you now. I've been meaning to for a long time. It's a pity I only decided to tell you now. What about the baby? The girl froze in terror. She had no strength to cry or say anything else. What baby? Get rid of your child and live a normal life. I'm telling you right now, it's your problem, not mine. I didn't ask for any children. That's all. Don't try to get on my nerves. I won't let anyone manipulate me. And Christopher really began to hurriedly gather his things. He was apparently afraid that the girl would wake up from her stupor, clinging to him, sobbing, screaming. But Eliza continued to sit indifferently and powerlessly. And you stay in this apartment. Here, keep the rest of the money. Get a job, Christopher muttered as he gathered. Where will you go? To the dorm. Never mind. It's none of your business now. And the baby, isn't that your baby too? And that's none of my business. That's it, Eliza, I'm sorry and goodbye. I'm off. Goodbye, replied the girl confusedly. Christopher hurriedly left the room with his things. Eliza was left sitting stunned. Her soul was in total darkness. The rented room was in a communal apartment. In addition to Eliza, there lived an elderly married couple and a lonely, very mean old lady. The fact that Christopher had left the girl and that she was expecting a child was not a secret for long. One could not expect sympathy from the neighbors. They were not very sociable even before, and now they began to shun Eliza, as if afraid of being infected by her misfortune. And this was not the worst-case scenario, because the landlady had also found out about it. So when she came to get the next payment, she said straight out, "Can I congratulate you? Of course it's a good thing, but you're not staying here with the baby. Look for a new place to live. Our people are quiet elderly. Screaming and diapering are no use to anyone here." "All right, I'll move out," Eliza promised, absolutely no idea how to keep that promise. The money Christopher left her was only enough for a month. And even so, she hardly ate at all. She had morning sickness and just didn't want to eat. She found a job as a cleaner in a little store. She couldn't find anything else. And the pay there was very low. The apartment situation was even worse. To rent even the smallest room for a pregnant woman was simply unrealistic. Moreover, there was no money either. And all her searches mostly amounted to meaningless wandering around the city due to her reluctance to return home from where she was about to move out. During one of these wanderings through the city, she somehow stealthily approached her former home. There, the windows on the third floor. That's where she lived with her parents. Not happily, but she had lived there nonetheless. Now there were curtains, flowers on the windowsill, a chandelier under the ceiling, and there's a window on the first floor. Maria lives there now. It's dark, so Maria's out walking somewhere. Lucky. She doesn't care about anything. And if anything happens, she can always go to Mom or Dad who live next door. They haven't seen Maria for a long time. She doesn't know about the changes in Eliza's life. She would like to go in and talk to her, at least like she used to. But she's not home. And then, as if by chance, Eliza heard Maria's familiar carefree laughter. She was on her way home, and not alone, with a man. Married? No, that would have been reported. The figure of the man seemed familiar. Not only did Eliza not recognize it, she couldn't believe that Maria was hugging Christopher by the shoulders. Eliza was stunned before she could even step around the corner. How to communicate with her former best friend and former lover, she did not know. They are a couple? When did they have time? Maria and Christopher broke away from each other and saw Eliza standing in their way. "Oh, hello," began Maria. "How are you? You've changed, I see." "Are you following us?" came back to Christopher as well. "It's okay. I'm sorry, I just happened to be here," Eliza muttered. "I didn't know you two were together now. I just wanted to see a friend." "Well, look," allowed Maria, "I live beautifully. And yes, we are together. If you didn't notice it before, that's your problem, not mine. And everything else is none of our business either." "Well, be happy," Eliza said and walked away. And so it turned out that she was now lying in a swanky maternity ward with her baby and a complete lack of understanding of what to do next. She moved out of her rented apartment on the last day before the birth, barely begging her landlady to leave some of her things in the closet for now. But what to do next? She had heard that there was an organization somewhere that helped women in difficulty. But where? And how would she find out about them? If she had a computer and the slightest skill in using it. They say you can find everything there on the internet. But Eliza didn't know how. "Oh, I'm stupid. I should have learned something while I was living with Christopher. At least use that money to buy myself a laptop. And now what? When I get out of here, where do I go? Begging, like our dad said?" The idea of leaving the baby here in the maternity hospital, at least temporarily, did not occur to her. Eliza did not even want to think about the separation from her son, nor did she think about the suffering she was condemning her child to. At the same time, Eliza felt as if her eyes had been opened after the birth. She realized how wrong she had been living before. If I had read more, if I had been interested in something, if I had lived more than just earning paltry money for basic needs, if I had communicated more with people, I would not have found myself in such a sad situation, or at least would have known how to get out of it. What about now? The only people close to her, so to speak, were her ex-fiancé Christopher and her best friend Maria. It's no use going to them. To the former mistress and neighbors, even less so. I haven't known anybody else in 20 years. Yes, I'm going to be very different now. I'm going to do everything I can to make Mark happy. But how do I begin this happy life? 4 days after the birth came the day of discharge. Eliza faced a formidable problem. What now? There she would go outside with her son. And there's nowhere else to go. She couldn't breastfeed and change the baby outside, could she? But no one will leave her here either. It's a miracle that she stayed in a paid ward for 4 days without needing anything. Ask the doctors, the nurses, maybe they know where to go in these situations. Oh no. Immediately they will advise me to leave Mark, or even take it away. All right, I'll go out, and then we'll see. When she came out with her son in one hand and a bag of presents in the other, she was at a loss. Not far away was a large white car decorated with brightly colored balloons. Apparently, the happy father had come to meet his wife and child. There are happy people, Eliza sighed. Suddenly, the same man who had arranged for her to go to the maternity hospital got out of the car. "Hello, Eliza. Congratulations to you. Why? Are your greeters running late?" "Mine just don't exist. He's mine, Mark," she pointed to the child. "And who are you greeting so solemnly?" "You. I found out when you were being discharged, so I came. Let me at least give you a ride home. Where are you going?" "That's the thing. I don't know myself. Maybe to an ex-girlfriend and her boyfriend, who used to be mine, and became Mark's father. Maybe we could stop there sometime." "Yeah, it's a situation. But if you ask me, it's not ideal at all. Let's do this. I have an empty apartment with all the necessary appliances. Stay there for a while. Can you handle the baby alone?" the man suggested. But I have nothing to pay for it, Eliza said confusedly. Who's talking about money? Live, maintain order, get your affairs in order. I don't know, of course, but I think they pay some kind of allowance for children now. There's a computer there. Search the websites. You'll find out. But for now, just live like that. I don't need money from you. I don't understand why you're helping me, Eliza ventured to ask. What Richard was offering was a miracle. It was something she could never have dreamed of. There's a reason. I'll tell you about it sometime later. The man finally persuaded Eliza to stay at his apartment, at least for the first time, and the girl agreed. Here we are. Come, let me introduce you to your new home, the man said as he opened the door to the young mother. The one-room apartment turned out to be very cozy indeed, equipped with everything necessary for life. Of course, there was no crib or stroller, but that did not embarrass Eliza. The windows overlooked a nice park, behind which there was a playground, where children and young mothers were walking. In other words, couldn't have dreamed of anything better. Here, settle in, live, said Richard and put a small wad of money on the table. I'll come by and check on you. But in general, don't be shy. They said goodbye, and Eliza began her real adult life. She understood that it was impossible to remain the same as she was. After all, the way things had worked out for her, thanks to Richard, could not last forever. So he would come and see how the young single mother was still living a hopeless life, unable to cope even with her child, not to mention the difficulties of life. That's it, he asks her to move out, and that's the end of it. She has to do something for herself and her son. There's a computer in the apartment, but Eliza only knew how to turn it on. No more than that, so you have to ask for help. In order to ask for help, you have to talk to people. And there was plenty of room for communication. First of all, they were mothers like her and their mothers, that is, the children's grandmothers. From them you can always learn something important and useful, and not only on the care of children. Very soon Eliza made several friends, from whom she learned a lot of useful things. So when Richard came to visit Eliza 2 weeks later, he saw not a distraught, unhappy girl, but a confident young woman. You look really good, Richard marveled. I was honestly afraid of how you'd do it alone. But you've got it all in order. I see you've even got a stroller. Yes, a neighbor gave it to me. Her kid's all grown up now, free of charge. That is, for the fact that I sometimes babysit her boy in the mornings. She's already gone to work, and the nanny only comes in from lunch. And she has already learned how to use the computer. The girls also helped. I also learned a lot. Now I'm restoring the documents. I'll register Mark soon. We have already registered at the hospital, so everything is getting better. And thank you for everything. Well, you're not sitting around doing nothing yourself. I mean, you probably wouldn't be lost without me either. Where would I go without an apartment? But you promised to tell me why you decided to support me. That is, in fact, to save me. What's there to tell? I'm the one who's paying back debts, Richard said with a sigh. I have a daughter, raised her alone. My wife died a long time ago, but I guess I didn't bring her up right, and turned out to be a worthless father himself. When she was 18, she got pregnant by who knows who, and instead of helping her, I scolded her. Well, you know how it is in such cases. I yelled at her and told her to get out of the house and go back to the one she got pregnant from. I thought that she would just be ashamed or something, but I felt bad for my daughter myself. And she just took off, and not just left, and went to another country. I don't know how, and that was it. And that was the end of it. I mean, not like that. She once wrote that she gave birth to her son and gave him up for adoption to another family, that good people were raising him, and I will never see my daughter or grandson. But that's terrible. And didn't she ever write or call again? No, but when I saw you outside the maternity hospital, it made my heart ache. Maybe my Rosie was sitting there too. And when I found out that your name was Eliza, I called my daughter Rosie Eliza as a child. I think I can help you. It'll make me feel better." And it really did. At least now I sleep peacefully, and then completely insomnia tormented. When I close my eyes, I see my lonely and abandoned Rosie weeping. How my grandson grows up with strangers, does not know his mother. That's how it is. But that's terrible. I don't believe your daughter won't forgive you. She must understand. Although, I don't know. She gave up her baby. Yes. That's too much. But maybe it'll get better. I don't know, Eliza. Maybe time is ticking away, and there's no telling how things will turn out. Let's hope it's good. Not long ago, I didn't know if I was going to live, and now I'm living. You know, Richard, I might be moving out soon. I found out about a center that helps single people like me. They offer housing and legal help, and help with jobs. Isn't that great? I'll pay you back when I start earning money. Well, there's no need for that at all. I mean, you can pay me back, of course, when Mark grows up. Who knows, I may be a lonely old man by then. I don't know what conditions are like there, but I don't think they're any better than here. And you can get all the help you need here too. And this apartment is still empty. And you are so well settled here, as I see. Richard left Eliza quite calm about the fate of the girl and her son. Good for the girl. She was able to pull herself together. She's trying to help others herself. Sitting with someone else's boy, trying to get her life together. Not like my Rosie. How's she doing out there? She left her kid. I don't know what she's doing. And she had everything, an education, and a chance to go back to school. And now what? Is she even alive? Richard thought to himself sadly. He tried to find his daughter after she ran away. But when he found out that his grandson was now growing up with someone else's family, he stopped trying. He couldn't understand how Rosie could abandon her child. Nor could he forgive her. No matter how life turned out, there was no way he could have done that. Okay, you abandoned your father, condemned him to a lonely old age. Maybe it deserved it. But a child, my own son, how could you abandon him? Eliza, after seeing Richard off, took Mark in her arms and wondered how versatile people can be. This man had done more for her than any man she had ever met in her life. He had, you might say, revived her and kicked his own daughter out of the house, expecting her to crawl to him, begging for forgiveness. And now he resents her. Yes, it's terrible that Rosie abandoned her child, but Eliza only knows that from Richard's own words. His daughter may have a completely different point of view, but how do we find out? How would one talk to this girl? Could she be able to forgive her father? Eliza saw that Richard was pining for his daughter. Even to her, Eliza, he helped only to obtain forgiveness, if not from Rosie herself, then from God or something. After finishing all the day's work and putting her son to bed, Eliza sat down to the computer. Maybe be able to track down this unknown woman? But what do we know about her? Only her first and last name. Not that rare. It is not even known what country she lives in. And yet Eliza decided to try. Strangely enough, she succeeded. Although not the first time. Some answered that she was wrong. Others answered nothing. One turned out to be Rosie, Richard's daughter. It turned out that she didn't live abroad, but in another city. Communication did not take off right away. At first, Rosie didn't want to talk about her father at all. "He cut me and my grandson out of his life," was Eliza's response. She was not going to give up and told her story, and how and why Richard had saved her, Eliza, and her Mark, and how her father missed his daughter. "And your son. You don't know anything about him?" she asked Rosie. "I know everything. He's right beside me now. I didn't give up the baby. I just told the father that to hurt him more. And you succeeded." The conversation lasted until late at night and continued into the morning. Eliza tried with all her might to persuade her companion to reconnect with her father. "It's not just important for you and your daddy, but also for Daniel, your son. He has a right to know his grandfather." "That grandfather didn't want to know him himself," replied Rosie. "You think so? He still can't get over the fact that his grandson is growing up among strangers and doesn't know his own family. But my son won't have that either. But if Christopher ever decides to meet Mark, I won't stop him from doing so. I won't say anything bad about him. What happened between us has nothing to do with the baby. How could he not? If my dad hadn't met you, what would have happened to you and the baby? And if I hadn't met kind people on the way? But they met. I mean, everything worked out the way it was necessary. Really? And there's nothing stopping you from coming and seeing your father. If only so you don't regret it. Her entreaties got results. After a while, Rosie did agree to come and visit with her son. But Eliza did not tell Richard about it, deciding to surprise him. On the day Rosie and Daniel were to arrive, she invited Richard to dinner, hinting that she had a small holiday that she wanted to celebrate with him, the closest person. The man arrived at the appointed hour and saw the table festively set for 4. "Are you waiting for someone else?" he asked. "Yes, waiting. Someone you'll be very happy to see too," Eliza smiled. Then the doorbell rang. Richard was speechless when he saw his daughter with a boy about 5 years old. Who Rosie came with was not to be questioned. Daniel looked a lot like his grandfather when he was the same age. "Hello, Daddy," said Rosie and pushed her son toward Richard. "This is your grandson, Daniel. I didn't give him up anywhere. We live together. And here we come to you, you see." Eliza convinced us. The elderly man's throat tightened. Tears came to his eyes. He hugged his daughter and grandson. Silently, he held them close to him. Then, with one hand, he pulled Eliza, who was standing next to Mark, in his arms. "Well, now it turns out I have 2 daughters and 2 grandchildren," the man said with tears in his eyes. "And I have a brother then?" asked little Daniel. "Well, yes," laughed Eliza, "and an aunt too. Don't forget that."